Let's talk about things that we know in hindsight. Your first occupation was horseshoeing.
Probably not much I would change because, and I think this is a good thing about being kind of young, open-minded, and just willing. You learn to really enjoy the moment. And at that point in your life, almost everything is new. You know, it's an adventure, and it's exciting. You're not doing a lot of things for yourself. You're doing it for the joy of it. And so if you look at it in that sense, you look back, there's not a lot of things you would take back. I will say one thing, like if we could teleport and go back, I would enjoy the moment that much more. You know, like I'd try to keep those memories sacred that much more. One example would be I had lunch a lot, several times with Jerry and Norma Rich. So she would fix lunch and then he'd take me back home or, whatever. But in that case, so that's one of the things, because, that's obviously not going to last forever. So I would relish that moment a little more.
I'm like you. I don't think that I would change anything. There's not really anything I would change other than I can relate with appreciating it more.
Second job was, I would consider Frank Wilson or Dad.
In hindsight, what would you do different about that job?
Working with Dad?
Yeah.
Again, kind of the same thing. Enjoying more the moment, with him. And it's not like I didn't enjoy it. You would give special attention to being there and working with him, because again, that's not always going to be there. And so, you don't really see that at the time. Another thing on a personal side, developing a skill set, I would say. And he offered, but I would have had him teach me to like run the torch and weld a little more often. We did some, but I think we got the routine of, just working a smooth flow that, he kind of did the majority of the cutting and the welding. But looking back, I'd have been like, yeah, will you work with me just on that particular craft a little more? I don't do that stuff now, but it just, it'd be a good craft to kind of know. And your second job was
also with Dad. I think I would have appreciated the job more and been a better employee. I don't feel like I was a good employee because he was our dad, and I'm not going to say I took advantage of it, but looking back, I didn't put as much effort. Definitely not 100%. Probably not even 50% most of the time. I think some of the times I did, just because I was in the mood. And Dad was very gracious about all of that. I felt like he even, he gave me an office job by having me do his invoices. But I would have benefited a lot more from learning how to cut, pipe, weld it, doing whatever. So yeah, I have really good memories of working with Dad. I have really unfortunate memories of how I invested my energy and time into that opportunity.
Third job would have been working at the Cali College Wellness Center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll call that my third job. We may be skipping a few in there, but kind of the next step job. In hindsight, I would have developed more relationships over on the academic side. I mean, I had some and they were good. However, and this is just because I think it's important to develop relationships and kind of keep them nurtured. And I would have done more of that over in the, quote unquote office buildings.
Speaking of that, I know we're talking about jobs, but this kind of ties into jobs. In hindsight, what percentage of your focus did you give to your schooling?
Like high school days?
No, college.
College? Well, so college was better. High school was not very much.
Yeah, we can't.
We could talk about that.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Or not.
No, we can.
Now, the first couple years of college was better, but still not good. Like 50%.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be generous for me to say 50 to 60%.
Mm-hmm.
That's generous. Probably more like 45 to 50 or 40%
Yeah.
for college. And I just did the 1 year for BBI.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe this is normal, but as I done more and more college,
Mm-hmm.
my attention to time and to the process got better. I finished my master's with like a 3.8.
Okay.
And man, I was nowhere near that prior to, like, in anything. So I was the personal trainer for the Cali College Wellness Center. Worked with general clientele and ran kind of our personal training program there. And so one would think, well, in hindsight, wouldn't it be involved with directly what your line of work was? So in this case, no. That's why I say, it would have taken more effort, but I think that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
When we look back, probably criteria usually points to more effort. Mm-hmm. So I would have went over there and just developed more relationships, and just for the fact of, just for the sole fact of developing those relationships. What about you? What was your third job?
Stage department store in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. And looking back to that, I am glad I stuck to my guns about not working on church days. That's one of the big things I remember about that experience. And I was only there for about a year, a little less than a year. And so I told the manager that I didn't want to work on Sundays or Wednesdays, and if he honored that, because my major was music ministry, and I needed to be at service to fulfill my Christian service hours. You had to have so many Christian service hours. And so I said, if you will do that for me, then I will make sure that I'm giving it my all when I am here. And I feel like I did. The thing that I would have done differently at Stage is I would have probably given more to the when you work for a department store, they want you to push the credit cards. The only way you're going to get a bonus, at least at the time I was working for Stage Bells and Palais Royal, is if you get somebody to sign up for a credit card, which is actually, in my opinion, a very deceptive bonus, because you're talking people into getting a credit card that quite possibly will go into thousands of dollars worth of debt and never pay it off. That's just a proven fact. I'm not basing that on the people that I served, but on financial statistics. But I would have leaned more. So I tried to really get good at talking people into buying credit cards, which I regret that. But I would have leaned more into learning how to help people shop. There's a lot of people that come in department stores. I'm one of them. They don't know what to buy and what to pair with what. And so I think I would benefited from that. So,
what's something positive that you took away from working at Stage that kind of carried over to the future?
Working for Stage prepped me for working for a bigger corporation because of the blend of personality types of different employees. We were the largest stage department store in the state of Oklahoma, I want to say, I think, or one of the larger ones for sure. And so we would have, I think, 4 to 5 employees per shift, and then you're having different ones every day, because I would work Monday through Saturday. And because I was part-time, I could be in the morning or the afternoon, so you're working with different people. And it was helpful for me to be able to experience working with different personality types, because, you know, before that I was just mowing a lawn for a lady, and then I was working for Dad. And so it opened my experience up with working with and collaborating with different personality types.
My next job was the strength conditioning coordinator for Cali College Athletics.
Okay.
In hindsight, I think I would have given more attention to personal development for athletes. And it's very hard because there were 12 intercollegiate sports and only one of me. But I still remember seeing, athletes maybe having a rough day, or, you can tell they're going through something. Mm-hmm. And so not a full-blown counseling session, one-on-one word kind of picked me up. And that did happen. However, I would have given more attention, to that, because I think that's important. And I know a lot of the coaches there did that, because they were really close with the athletes. But yeah, that's just, because that's something, their athletic development and their physical development, that's all good. And that's really honestly why you're hired. But that only goes so far, and it only lasts so long. So, like I said, I know there were athletes that I was probably closer to just because maybe I spent more time with them. And, for several years after I was done there, I would, there would be baseball players that would reach out and say, hey, just saying hey. And, there'd be track athletes. And so that was good to see. And that was good to experience. However, would have given even more special attention to developing, that side. What was your next job?
The next job I had was working for a factory that manufactured toothpaste and Windex bottle sprayers. It was a temp job for about 4 months, and it was really tough mentally, because it was so monotonous. It was the exact same thing every day. And then,
so was it assembly line?
I had 3 different positions there. I started out as what's called a sorter, and you have to sort through all of the parts and that have been contaminated, and you have to separate the ones that are usable and the ones that are not usable at a table. And you're just sitting at a table all day with like a stick, and they just come and pour parts on the table, and you're sitting around with like 8 other people. And
Wow.
I got sick of that real fast, but they moved me to assembly, and you just run a machine. You basically load the parts in hoppers, and then the machine puts it all together. And then you have to watch for contamination to kick it to the table that I worked at. And then I worked for a very short time, like not even a week, in the warehouse, where you transport the parts to the warehouse and wrap them and all that. But that was the first job that I got laid off, because it's a temp job anyway.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I didn't know how long I didn't know if I was going to be there for months or for years.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, now I would have been more appreciative of the job and more open to learning the functionality and the management of the factory. It was a very monotonous job.
Yeah,
it's not one of those jobs I would go back and work or want to work.
Was it your least favorite job?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how people work assembly line for decades, or just those, like a manufacturing job. You know, it's yeah, there's not much change to it.
If you like structure and stuff that doesn't require creativity and it's just the same thing over and over, that's a perfect fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like creativity, spontaneity, I would not recommend working a factory job.
Yeah.
Because it's going to drive you nuts. I also there worked with a mixture of personalities that taught me a lot about just how you've got to give, and then you've also got to protect, and that I think was a good takeaway from the factory job.
I went to work for the Army Wellness Center in Leavenworth, Kansas.
On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best job you've ever had, 0 being the worst job, what would you rate that one?
I would say 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. I liked working with the military folks, and there was a high standard there, which I appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked with a lot of the higher command, like command sergeant major, colonels. There was a course called the pre-command course. So this was people going to serve in leadership positions. They would go through a course at Leavenworth, and so we'd run them through the health and wellness initiatives at the Army Wellness Center. And so, yeah, enjoyed it very much. In hindsight, I would have given more attention to career development, if you would, to the ones that I was director over. That particular job was made to serve for a capacity of time, because we had what we called health educators, which were kind of like your personal trainers, and then there was like assistants, and they recorded numbers like bod pod numbers, submax VO2 testing. They would check people in up front, but that job was made almost to transition you to something else, eventually to the outside workforce. They never said this, but I believe that program was designed not to be there forever. They may have thought that, but I'm not even sure the program's running now. I think in some installations it is, but maybe not at every one. But I would have paid more appropriate attention to developing characteristics, or maybe traits, or skill sets I seen in just the ones that the staff I was over, because they all had very, very unique giftings, and I can think of 2, and they're probably working in that gifting now. But just personally, I would have given more attention to helping them develop that.
Next occupation was working at First Intermark in Kansas City. I think it was between 7 and 8 years. And out of all of the previous ones that I mentioned, that would be the one that I would rank at the top of the list.
Like, as far as your favorite job?
Yeah, and just favorite, most beneficial. Obviously, I think a lot of that has to do with the years that I put in there. It was a longer time. And it was probably the most structured, which some jobs don't require a lot of extra structure, but it was more structured. And so you mentioned career development. That's one of the things that they did well. The president was very good at making sure his employees got better. And so I don't even know how many seminars, conferences, and things that he sent me to, which carries over a lot today, because now I appreciate seminars, conferences, and webinars and educational opportunities, because it did grow me. So,
do you think that's the job that prepared you the most as far as just overall, let's just say, skill set?
As far as the job that prepared me for what I do today, yes. Because of I started out in client services, and they moved me to programming, and then they moved me to management. And so in the management is when I started developing more skill set and understanding about dealing with people, leading people.
Something you look back now and you see in hindsight, good, bad, or indifferent from that job?
So one of the things that I would have done differently is it's in a corporation or a business that has several employees. I think it's easy to be swept in the current of dissatisfaction, gossip, or drama, office drama, whatever. And I think I could have done better at that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that I was overtaken by it, or that it hindered my job performance, but I think it definitely hindered my emotional well-being. And now, as when they moved me to management, then I could sort of sense that people were talking behind the scenes about, well, we should do this or that better. And it feels different when you're the person in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't much appreciate people just talking behind the scenes. If you have something to contribute, like, let's talk about it out in the open, and let's talk about it rationally. And so I think that's one of the things that I would take away. So the job that you had before the job you have now was at St. Francis in the heart hospital.
Mm-hmm.
What was good? What could have been different?
That particular job at St. Francis prepared me the most for kind of what I do now, and skill sets I already had that were kind of, expanded and polished. I would almost say St. Francis was kind of a launching pad. And I think it's because we would see hundreds of patients a day. The stress lab, like doing stress tests and EKGs, maybe between 20 and 30 a day. But the department, non-invasive cardiology department, we would see, hundreds of patients a day. Someone's coming in for a stress test. That's not the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes they're tense,
anxious.
Sometimes, this is their first time to be in there. And so your people skills really are polished off, and as far as learning how to communicate with someone, make them feel at ease. But also, if you're needing information from them, and you're needing a true response, like, hey, in the middle of this test, how you feeling? You want a true answer, but you also want them to feel at ease. And working with multiple personalities, I think our department was 90-some. There were 90-some people just in our department. Keeping relationships with all those and learning how to work with people, that always challenged you. And then it was an area that I had not necessarily worked in. So EKG analysis, that was a new skill set that was, pushing me and requiring me to learn something new and learn something every day, and being willing to learn. I would have incorporated a little more ministry time. And someone would say, well, what do you mean by that? So when you're preparing for the stress test, oftentimes in the room, you have a lot of time. And so what I immediately think of is, a lot of times you would hear some of their personal story in the room, because you can be waiting we would wait a couple hours at times. Like if you're an inpatient and you're waiting on a lab to come back or something. And so given the appropriate time, in the moment someone needed help, and you could even kind of sense, this person, is really in need, looking for something. Mm-hmm. It would have been a perfect opportunity to minister to them. And that did take place. However, I would have done it more often, and almost, we talked about the effort. I would have given the effort to just incorporate that more often with patients, because I can't recall a time where they were like, oh no, that was bad advice, or I don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. And ministry meaning not necessarily, giving them, throwing out scripture to them, or it could be an encouraging word.
Right.
Or it could be scripture.
If you could go back and work any previous job for about 6 months without it hindering your current job, you just go back and work it, either just to experience it or to glean something from it, which job would you go back all the way back to when you were a kid, just for 6 months?
Probably the strength and conditioning coordinator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At Cali. Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was more or less what I went to school for, and just had invested so much time. More than anything, it would be just going back just to do it.
Yeah.
Just to spend more time in it, because I don't really do that stuff, anymore at all, honestly. And that's okay. For the season the Lord had me doing it, I did enjoy it. So that'd probably be the one. What about you? What would you go back and do for 6 months?
Definitely the factory where we were. No, I would not do that one. I would do First Intermark. To preface that, if we're going back to where everything was, is like it was, it would be First Intermark. If I'm just going back to do a job for 6 months, mm-hmm. that may be in a totally new condition, it'd probably be mowing lawns, even though I didn't mow lawns, plural. It was just mowed lawn. Yeah. But I would need to mow lawns to make a living. So, yeah, I would do that. I would do that. I enjoyed that. I do enjoy it. That was it. That was looking back at occupational experience, what we would do different.
In hindsight.